Welcome to Text Tuesday, Brandy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're excited to have you. And for those that are watching our live stream in YouTube or Facebook, we will go over some of our questions here for the first 30 minutes, and then we'll go over your questions. And so as you watch, please submit your questions via the comments, and our team will pass those on to us, and we'll address them in the second half of the show. So let's start now with you, Brandy. I always like to know from our guests, how did you first in love fall in love with technology, and what did you love the most about it?
Yeah, so I first got introduced to like the whole tech space, I want to say like 8 or 9 years ago. I worked at a software development company in Minneapolis, and I was doing marketing at the time and actually running a conference for the company. And part of the running of the conference was overseeing the website and the app and helping facilitate the teams that were building these things for the conference, making sure that it was obviously done right, done correctly, and everything that we needed, and that it would get done in time. And that was really my first introduction to seeing people build things from scratch, just from ideas that myself and the team had for them to build. And that's really what sparked my interest. And right then and there, I started Code Academy. And then honestly, within a couple of months, one of my coworkers actually went to Full Sail and recommended it. And then I applied, and that's kind of where the whole journey started.
So you usually when I interview people, people tell me like they fell in love with technology when they were 8 or 9 years old. You say
Nope.
you fell in love with technology 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah, no, I was not a technical person at all growing up, like not even close.
And what do you say is what you love the most about technology?
I just love the ability to build stuff from scratch, the ability to actually help people solve problems through technology. I think that's such a game changer.
So I think your career is super interesting because I think that you actually have two careers going on at the same time. On one side, you offer your technology and digital marketing talent as a tech freelancer, and you build software applications and work on marketing strategies and so on. And that alone will keep a normal person very, very busy. But you're also a full-fledged influencer, creating high-quality videos and content on a regular basis and sharing your wisdom with your followers. So, how do you balance those two very demanding jobs?
I really am good at time management. If you were to take a look at my Google Calendar, which is what I use a method called blocking or time chunking. And I divide up my day based on a lot of times my clients. And I will work on the weekends, but I will work Monday through Thursday strictly on, doing client work. And then I have my Friday freed up for content. And then also that involves content for my clients as well, since I have a agency now where we do a lot of different things for people. So I make sure that my schedule, allows me to have time to prioritize my own brand and my business as well.
So that gets into the next question a little bit. So, how did the two complement each other?
So that's a really great question. Really having your own brand and producing content and putting it out into the world on the internet, you're most likely, if you do it correctly and you're answering people's questions, you will get noticed by people that are wanting your services. And that has been the case for me for not only my business, but then also getting hired as a freelancer for companies like Microsoft. They've used me a couple of times to come down and film content with their team, and that's been a great opportunity. So they work very, very well together, if not, in parallel.
So I'm a follower. I follow you in Instagram, and I watch a lot of your material, and it's very useful and very inspiring. And you're approachable, knowledgeable, and you're really good at synthesizing ideas in something that people can apply. And this is time. This is something that takes time to develop, even if you're a natural talent. And to do it around tech freelancer is uncommon. And how did the idea of becoming an influencer came about?
Well, that's a good question. So I saw other people, documenting their life and showing different skills. A lot of the people that I was following at the time were into like photography and doing all sorts of different like product things. And I saw people on Instagram, a few females that were showing, coding stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a thing. And that's really what sparked it. And I'm like, well, I can do that. And I also wanted to open up the doors for other people to, if you were, a woman in tech and you were trying to kind of find somebody to either like be like, a mentor or aspire to be like, I wanted to make sure that I was putting out content that people could relate to, and that it was also, around the whole, being in the programming field.
Did you think at a time that it was something business-wise was going to help your career as a tech freelancer, or you did it just because you love creating content?
No, I usually have an end game with stuff that I do. So I wanted it, I did it as a business. I always think of it as a business, which is why I produce content all the time, just like you would for your business. Um, so my goal with it was to attract, at the time, jobs, like different jobs or different opportunities. And then, yes, I definitely wanted to help other companies create content. But then also, as I started doing that, I realized they could also use my services. So they go really hand in hand.
Um, I'm curious, when you say that you plan your day very specifically, um, how does that fit the bigger picture? Do you have yearly goals that you try to match with those daily tasks, or monthly goals?
Oh yeah.
And as you know, we were talking before we went on the air that last year you were not producing nearly at this time nearly as much content that you're producing
Mm-mm.
this year, which made me think that at some point you made a decision to double down on that idea. So it just explain to me a little bit about how you say you have always an end game. How's that process of the end game comes about, and how do you manifest that in your work?
Yeah, so right behind me, you can kind of see it right there, is a whiteboard where I have some of my goals. I actually just changed it because I had met most of my goals for my business and for my brand really early this year, which was amazing. But then that
Wow.
means I have to make new goals and even maybe harder goals, like harder to meet goals. So, I mean, the whole end game at the beginning, like I said, was to get new opportunities and jobs. And that's why I was kind of creating very specific types of content. Like if you go way back, there was a lot of, programming, talking about React Native, because that was my thing back then. And I really wanted to build this name in the React Native space for myself. And then as I started to kind of get out of that and get other opportunities and jobs around content creation, I started kind of focusing on that. And then now, as I'm running my own business, I'm realizing, okay, if I want to continue to fuel my agency with the types of clients I currently have, whom I love, I need to start creating content that actually better serves them. So I've actually started, I'm in the process of starting a whole other YouTube channel for that type of stuff, just because I've seen how right now my current channel has impacted my current business. If I can even fine tune it even more, that's something that I'm all about doing and hoping that it'll fuel my business to continue to grow.
So your goals don't go with the calendar year, or they do, and you just happen to meet them really early this year.
Yeah, so even like, yeah, so I had financial goals for my business, and oddly enough, I met them in February, which sounds crazy. So clearly,
Congratulations.
so clearly the goals weren't the best, or high enough. And so now, yeah, my goals normally go within the calendar year. So right now I have goals that, come the end of December, I'm hoping to have met.
So you have a technology, but also you have an agency, and is that are they equal in your attention and your business goals, or is there one of them that you want to grow more?
Do you mean the agency
Is the
versus?
agency more based on marketing, on content development, and or is that complementary to, or also the technology services are part of the agency?
Yep, they're all together.
Or they all together? Got
Usually, so my whole point in sale is I only focus on your revenue, growing your revenue for your business. And if that's through content marketing, if that's through, website updates or, really whatever it is, that's what we help you do.
So you talk a lot about how the content helps serve your clients and bring new businesses, but there are real people that are following you, and and it's interesting when somebody shares their secrets, because some people argue, well, if you share your secrets, then you're expanding your competition. More people can do what you do. But yet you are very generous sharing your knowledge, and then imagine that you have touched people's lives, and I'm very curious to see and to learn if you can share some of the feedback you receive from your followers in terms of how you inspire them.
Yes. Well, I have a Slack and I also have a Discord community that has thousands of people from all over the world in it. And that in and of itself has been a huge blessing on my life because I've been able to hire people, which is also a blessing for those people. But when people come to me and they say, oh my gosh, I watched your video or I took your course and I was able to apply what you told me to either land a job or get a client or get more money from their clients, and to like up their prices or to change whatever it is that they're trying to work on, whether it's a proposal or branding guide. That means so much to me. And then also a huge part of it is just the confidence. I think if when confidence is a skill, it's a muscle, it's something you train, you can build it up and build it up. And that's something I would say that I have built up over time because I've been doing this for a while. And I hope that through people watching my content that they can just have some of that confidence so that they know that they can go out there and create the life that they want. Really, for me, it's been through freelancing, not sitting at an office every single day. And that when people tell me that, it touches my life so much because I genuinely want people to have an amazing life that they want.
So when you say that confidence is a muscle that you can train, are you speaking out of experience?
Oh yeah. So when I was at Full Sail, there were all these tech meetups going on, and so I went to Full Sail from 2014 to 2016, and the teachers that I had were amazing, and they always encouraged us to go to meetups, and I was always eager to like do what they asked of us. So I would go to meetups, and pretty soon I started presenting at these meetups. And it started as a lightning talk where you go up and talk 5 minutes, and of course the topic was I think React Native or React or something. And I was shaking, I was so nervous. But then fast forward to being out of college, like the very first few months I was speaking at conferences in front of thousands of people, keynoting conferences. And so, yes, 100%. If you're lacking confidence, go speak in front of people. Like no matter like what you're telling yourself that you can't do it, you can do it, and you just have to force it.
Was it hard to get started?
For me, no, because I'm just like I'm gonna do it. I just knew that I needed to do it, and so picking out the topics I think is maybe the hardest part, but. And then once you're done, especially here in the Orlando community, the tech space, everybody's very encouraging.
They are. So let's talk about technology. I'm very lucky that I get to interview people like you, and I'm always very curious about specific things about technology because when you work in technology, and you said this before, it's about solving problems, and sometimes some of those problems are things that are obvious and people can see in the final product. Sometimes as technologists, as programmers, you solve problems that no one ever knows about, And for me, those are the most interesting.
Mhm.
Is there a problem that you solve that perhaps people don't know about that you are particularly proud of?
I know this question. I mean, there's so many things when you think of when you're solving.
You can share more than one.
I mean, so a problem that I solved that okay, so there was one time that we were building a quiz for this popular it was this application that people use from a very popular cartoon. And so we had to build this quiz that essentially put you into a certain it gave you like a power, right? And so one of the hardest things was actually working through the logic of how you actually build a quiz that has so many inputs. And for me, I had never done that before. I was fresh out of college. And that to me was probably one of my greatest moments because I actually didn't think that I could do it. And even now, like looking back at that, I'm like, to me, it was such a great thing. But I'm like, man, that was actually really probably easy to do. But for somebody who doesn't know or has never done something like that before, it was extremely difficult. So for me, that was like a huge win. So I was like, yes, I did it. And I did it all by myself. I mean, obviously, I had help from some other people, but for me, that was a huge win.
And for the users of that application, they just used it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and
the
that,
thing was, so we had 8 weeks to build it. It was
oh wow.
myself and another developer, another guy that was doing QA, and they gave us 8 weeks. And literally, I was at the office. This was at Purple Rock. I was at their office till like it was like one in the morning that night, and I literally had to get on a flight to New York City to be the technical lead on the project at the actual store that they were going to be using the application. And so one of the other things was I was in this like I don't know this pop-up shop in the middle of
Mhm.
New York City. Had never been to New York. I'm sitting there with my computer fixing code errors for this application that was connected to this printer that was printing on t-shirts. And the printer guy was like, these colors don't work. And so we're in there changing like hex codes, but then also trying, there's all sorts of like crazy issues that were happening at the time. But that was like literal live on site fixing things. And that was stressful, but I loved every second of it.
And New York caused an impression of you because you have a picture of Lady Liberty behind you.
Yeah, I love New York City. We would love to move there someday. We'd go there a couple times a year. It's actually where my husband proposed.
Oh wow! So
Mhm.
a lot of great memories. I love New York City too. I try to find excuses to go there every year as
Mhm.
well. Um, so solving problems. Sometimes we get to solve them. Sometimes we don't get to solve them,
Mhm.
and people never know about them either. And as technologies, we that sticks with us, like those problems that got away from us that we couldn't get to solve.
Mhm.
So, do you have an example of a feature you can implement or a problem you didn't get to solve completely? Can you speak about an example like that?
Yeah, so this is kind of an example, I would say. So there was a company I worked for, and I was in charge of doing their mobile app, which we built in React Native. And we got through V1 and majority of the bug fixes, but I never actually got to see like the whole thing completely done, like the whole thing. And I feel like that was kind of always a bummer because you spend months and months and months, almost like years worth of time building something, and then you don't actually get to see it like fully finished. So that would be my example for that.
Can relate to that. All right, so time management. We talked about that in already, but part of doing projects is not only time management but the time prediction of what things will take. And in technology, we're all famous for underestimating the technology work. But as a freelancer, that can really be deadly because that could be the difference between making money or losing money in a project or overextending yourself and not delivering on time. Um, so I imagine you're probably very deliberate and disciplined about what kind of project you take on. So how do you choose your clients and how do you choose your projects?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients they come from a very almost like the same genre, same industry. And so usually, I say usually, they have very similar problems and issues that they're looking to fix, which is what we specialize in. And so I know since I've done it before, I have a really great idea of how long it's going to take. But a lot of it does depend on what they're currently using. So a lot of times, if it's like website rebuilds and they're already using something, I will normally, if they're paying for it, I will just figure it out and learn it just so it doesn't cost them a ton of money to have to go through a whole entire like custom rebuild. But that in and of itself, is estimated out with them that they're aware of, going into the project. But there's also, I've worked with, other developers on projects where they'll estimate, very, very short. And we're like, no, you want to add like months to that. That's about like 40% like of what you actually think the work is going to be.
And do you estimate the effort also for the people that work for you, or do you
100.
let them estimate it for you?
Well, we'll go through it together. And
Okay.
then, obviously I have final say, but I'm always like, no, you want to pad anything, pad it. Because there's so many things that always come up. So many things.
I used to manage programmers many lives ago, and there were programmers that I will double what they tell me, and some other programmers that will triple what they tell me.
Hmm.
And because of that pattern that you're talking about, there's just a lot of problems that you find out once you get into the code. And so, uh,
Well, it's also like, yeah, like businesses that will come and say they want to pay X amount for
mm,
this app, and you're like, no, you want to spend maybe 3/4 of that and save the rest of the money for updates and fixes, because
right.
V1 is never the final say. It's never the end. So it's also educating your clients that you don't want to spend all your money up front. You want to just put in what's necessary and then get feedback from them and obviously from their customers to improve upon.
So let's talk about success. And you again, congratulations, Brandon. It's been incredible to watch your success develop. And I think that to be successful, you have to be hyper aware of your strengths, and I think that in itself is a superpower. What do you think is your superpower? What brings you success?
So this is kind of funny. I would actually say my ability to say no is a superpower. Um, and that kind of goes along with one of my weaknesses, which is being impatient. But I have seen that throughout my career and all the changes my career has made, because I don't think my career has just been like a path,
Mhm.
that my ability to say no at the right times has saved me a lot of heartache and a lot of headaches. And I think so oftentimes when we're, fresh out of school, like especially when we're trying to make it in a new industry, which was what I was trying to do, we think we need to say yes to everything. And that's just not the case. I definitely say like weighs the pros and cons, but saying no is extremely helpful.
So give me a couple of examples of times that you will say no. Why would you say no to a client?
Well, kind of one of the things I was saying before is if somebody's wanting all this stuff, all the bells and whistles, and they're very adamant about it, I will just say no. Like it's just not going to work, because we're going to have this same conversation 6 months from now, and you're going to be mad because you're going to have to spend more money. So let's just save it now, and either we can continue forward, or I will bow out and say no, we're not going to do it.
And imagine those clients go find somebody else that tells yes. And
And who
I
gets to come
imagine
back? Who gets hired to fix it? Me.
it's,
Yep. It has
they come,
happened. It has happened. Yeah.
right. I was gonna ask you that.
No,
Yeah,
it happens.
absolutely. And they say, I told you this 6 months ago. Now you have to
Yeah.
spend twice.
Hmm.
Exactly. um, so working in technology is right. It turns to the next question, and this is gonna be the last one before we go to questions from the audience. Um, but it's not only the skill that you have to learn, and it's also that curiosity and that tenacity. And I think learning how to say no requires a lot of courage. But what would you tell someone interested in pursuing a career in technology?
Be a forever student. You're always going to be learning stuff. And this doesn't necessarily mean learning the latest and the greatest technology. I think that in of itself can be overrated in the actual career sense, but always be willing to learn new skills and also be willing to learn complementary skills. If it wasn't for my desire to learn web development and then pair it with my skills of marketing, then also learn social media and content and video, I wouldn't have the ability to open up an agency and even then hire people for those skill sets that are better than me. So be a forever student in whatever it is that you're doing, but don't necessarily always chase after like the shiny new programming language that comes out and all the frameworks. But be willing to learn and grind at the ones that you are focusing on, and being able to, share your knowledge as well when you do learn new things, because you'd be surprised at who doesn't know the same thing that you just learned.
So let me ask you a very technical question and follow up on that, because I was a programmer once, and I guess I didn't do it long enough for a particular technology to not be relevant anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And but you just mentioned before, you as a technologist, you could try to be the latest and greatest all the time. There's frameworks coming out every day, and
Mm-hmm.
you can be learning, and you can be an expert. And what everybody says is, try to learn one, go very deep on it, be very good, because they're all different ways to solve problems, and you can apply different frameworks for it. But at some point, there are frameworks that become irrelevant, and
100%.
I seen people stuck to their guns and try to use technology that people no longer want to use in the marketplace. How do you make a decision when to let go of a technology?
I mean, I haven't had that issue really. I've stuck in the JavaScript world pretty much the whole time. When I first got out of school, I was in PHP and JavaScript, and a lot of the JavaScript libraries and frameworks that are out there. But for me, I always will look to see what companies are hiring, and a lot of big companies. And also, if a big company is behind that language or the framework or the library, that's not always going to be the case, but it's usually a case that it's going to be around for a while, because there's a lot of money and resources being poured into it.
It's a good question. It's a good answer, and I always wonder about that, when it's time to let go.
Mm-hmm.
But JavaScript's been around for 30 years, maybe 25 at least, and so you just stick with that language and beyond the framework, because you mentioned React, and but there can be other frameworks like React, but at the end of the day, it's all JavaScript.
Yeah, I mean, if you learn JavaScript and you learn it really, 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 you learn it well, you're able to use other libraries and frameworks. Like for me, when I got out of school, the project that they put me on was Vue.js. I had never even heard of Vue.js, and I literally had to pick it up in the moment as I'm building. And that's just part of life, especially if you're going to go work at an agency, which I strongly recommend. You get exposed to so much there, but learning on the fly. Mm-hmm.
You said you schedule your time. You're very disciplined about scheduling your time. Do you schedule time to learn new technologies as well in there?
That's a really good question. Well, so I have I do reading, so I have reading time scheduled in my day, and so that can be blog posts, it can be books, it can be new technologies, whatever I'm kind of feeling that day. But I do schedule that sort of reward time as my reading time in my day.
So that's how you keep yourself updated?
Yeah, and I follow a ton of different accounts on social media that are always talking about the latest and the greatest, or what's happening. So that's a really pretty easy way to stay on top of. You find the big leaders in these whatever language or library or framework you're in, and then you follow them. they're always talking about stuff, so then I don't have to go digging for it.
Did you? They have a question from the audience, and did you have a mentor in school or fresh out of school that helped you, and
Yes.
and how?
Yes, her name was Renee Blunt. She actually went to Full Sail. She worked at Purple Rock Scissors, which was my in to getting that job. And she came back and spoke at Full Sail on a panel with other previous students, I believe, like once or twice. And so I just kind of kept bugging her and bothering her because she was the only female developer that I had ever met, like in the real world, And so I just gravitated towards her and kind of just kept asking her questions. And then she was one that was like, hey, do you want to come work at Purple? Come interview. And then so I literally went and worked there with her. And throughout that whole process, she just kind of helped me navigate the waters of, because we were the only 2 female developers on the team of I think it was like maybe 13 at the time. And so yes, I had a mentor and it was really great. And I would recommend having one. That doesn't mean somebody you have to check in with all the time, but just having somebody there that you can ask questions and kind of has your back.
Do you pay that forward? Do you have other people that you mentor?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, through social media, I mentor people all over the world. I'm always in my DMs helping people. I have helped people work for my husband's software company. I've had people come work for me. And I mentor them over video calls like this. Just really, all the time. And I always hope to do that through my content and keep that, communication open both ways.
I seen your postings with your husband, and so he's a software developer as well, which is, interesting dynamic to have 2 software developers in the same household.
So we met at a tech meetup in Orlando, but we're very similar, but very different personalities. Very different, yeah.
What technologies you specialize on?
Same. So I met him while I was at Full Sail, and he was one that told me to go really all into React because he was working at ShowFlow actually at the time, and they used React to build all of this. And he was like, just no JavaScript because you can do Node on the back end, React on the front end, and it's JavaScript at the end of the day. So.
So I seen I actually started following some of the other influencers that you follow, and especially some of the female ones, and because it's not common to find technology females like that. So you are very different than them, though. And whereas you said that your content over a year ago was very technical, today it's more about lifestyle and pursuing. And is that a decision you made to be different, to be set apart, or is just what your heart took you?
Yeah, so I'm not somebody who is romantic about coding. And there are so many people that are very romantic about it. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that's not me. My agenda is to build a business. And so it was very deliberate to make that change because I don't want to be, not like selling, but like, putting something out there that is fake. And so for me, it's more natural to talk about building a business, building a freelance career, and how you do that. And even, going into soft skills that can set you apart from other people. That was really why I did it. Because there are so many great accounts that post amazing actual coding and technical content out there. And I want them to continue to do that. And I don't really want to compete with them because I'm not super passionate about it.
So I think I know what you mean by being romantic about coding, but I think you're going to have to explain that a little more.
So, well, there's so many, a lot of times, and, people can code and code and code, during their day job and at night. And I used to be one of them. And then I think, honestly, working at a startup for almost a year where I was grinding from 7:30 to almost 10 o'clock at night, writing the same, the same language over and over and over, I got very burnt out. And so it wasn't fun for me anymore.
Right.
And so I think for a lot of people, it is still fun, and it is genuinely fun. Like my husband loves to code. He can write code he does. That's all he does all day, every, 7 days a week. And for me, I'm just not that person. I would rather, I can code here, work on a video here, do something creative over here. That's why I always say I'm a Jill of all trades, and that's kind of how I prefer it, is being able to bounce from different things and not just have that one thing that you do.
So you said you hire people now, so it means that your business is growing, and you are so unique in the way you do things, and the culture that you have created for yourself and your brand. And how do you instill that in the people that are now working for you?
That's a really good question. So for me, we have people, well, this one particular person who's full-time, that's what I'll talk about. She's full-time with me, and she actually met me on YouTube, and I randomly said, hey, I'm hiring. And that's kind of how we met. So she was already very aware of me and who I am and who I want, like my sort of voice that I have. And so she has been a huge asset to the team, and really it's through excellence. So no matter what, all I want to produce is excellence for my clients. And she knows that, and other contractors I've worked with, they're very aware of that. And if something isn't excellent, like it feels wrong to give somebody something that I'm not proud of. And the people that work for me and contract for me, they're very aware of that. And they know that those standards are very clear, and those are set,
I love that answer. Yeah. It's about the excellence, because it's not about the individual work then. And when I work with designers, if there was a particular piece that still needed more work, I would ask them, would you put that in your portfolio?
Yep.
And sometimes the answer was no. So why would that be good enough then?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, if it's something that's maybe outside of my expertise, and if because I work with people that are real experts in their craft, but if it's something that I'm just like, it doesn't feel right, it's not going to do what we need it to do, let's go back to the drawing board and fix it.
Do you rather lose money in the project than deliver something you don't like?
Well, yeah, because I know that it's not going to do what the client needs it to do. You know what I mean? So my whole thing with my business is for the companies that work for me, for their businesses to grow. So my success comes through their success. And so if they're hiring me to, even if it's to do like a video or something, if that video doesn't actually, have their correct voice and brand, and it doesn't speak to the problem it solves, then it needs to be reworked and, start over. So yeah.
I was interviewing Bobby Jones once, but founder of Purple Rack, and I interviewed him a few times. We went to school together, so we know each other for a very long time. And he did tell me that principle that I just asked you. He must rather lose money in a project than deliver something that is not up to the standard. And I was very impressed by that back then, because I worked in many companies where that wouldn't, they would not lose money, and even if the product wasn't up to par. And to hear you say that, even for a freelancer, I mean, it's that's remarkable.
Well, thank you. And to Bobby's note, Purple delivers excellence. They are if you've ever seen any of the work that they've done, it's phenomenal. And working there right out of college, I think helped instill that in me, where you always put, as much work as, is required, and then some, to make sure it meets that excellent standard.
That's incredible. So, I usually have a question about networking, but I think we've been talking about networking all along. And you wouldn't have a business without networking, right?
No, I think everybody needs to go out there and meet people and talk to people, join online communities. That's literally that's how my career started. I was always talking to people at Full Sail. I mean, Full Sail in it. I mean, I'm not sure how it is now because it's been a few years, but I would go to every single one of those like GPS events. I think
Right.
that's all like, and like other meetups and stuff, and just talk to people, even people that are in different programs than you, because you really never know where that relationship's going to go or where they're going to be working. And then that leads to the whole internet side of things, where you connect with those people on LinkedIn, and oh, now they're working somewhere, oh, now you want to work there, maybe reach out to them, they remember you. It all kind of connects.
And that's how I met you. And
Yeah.
we were in a presentation from another graduate that you came to support, and
Yep.
and
It was even after I graduated.
yeah, and he kept asking you, and you kept giving your opinions, and I'm like, I need to meet her, and we exchanged cards that day, and that's how I met you. It's actually was networking here on
Yep.
campus.
Yeah, Full Sail. I mean, I love Full Sail. I always say that. But going to the opportunities that Full Sail provides for networking when you're a student and even when you're not a student. And I know that Mike, because I met him when I was a student. And so I follow him on Twitter, and that's kind of how that happened, of me going to support him. But I love that. I love the connections that I've made there. I still am connected to so many people. And I love it. Full Sail is the best decision of my life, hands down.
Oh, well, thank you, and we hope to see you back on campus um, soon. We'll have start having events very soon. I hope that next time I interview you, actually, we can do it face to face.
That would be
That would be
awesome.
great. So we're getting into the end of our journey here. I think this is perhaps the most exciting time to work in technology, and because there has been, especially in digital technologies, there have been about 50 years of innovation, innovation on top of innovation, top of innovation, and to the point that the kind of problems that we can solve today were not even possible to frame, let alone solve, 10 years ago. And for the new generation of technologists, I think it's super exciting for them. Like when I came into the technology industry, I made websites, and that was great. We connected the world, and that was fine. And but I do think that there's a lot more that the world can achieve from now on, and we're full of problems. The world is not any easier today than it was 50 years ago, and so it's super exciting. So, what do you see in technology today that gets you really excited about the future?
This is probably going to be a very random answer that may.
I love those.
So something that I think is actually really cool right now, and they've been around for a while, but they're these play to earn games. And so there's a couple of them out there, but there's a big one right now. And what I find is so cool is that so with people that have maybe some financial resources, they can actually pay people that maybe do not have financial resources to play this game and actually earn a salary and earn money while they play a game. And to me, I'm like, what? That's crazy. So, you're able to provide opportunities for people in really, to me, very unique and different ways that I didn't even know was a thing, and I feel that the progression of, this sort of, the gaming space even is going to go. And to me, that's really interesting. And I love being able to help people that maybe don't have the same opportunities that we do here to make money and to provide for their families and to provide for themselves. And that's something that I think is awesome. And I love, being able to do that and, kind of just getting started in that space myself. So.
Is that something you're working on right now?
Yeah. So there's this game. It's called Axie Infinity. I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but it's just it takes some money up front to do it, and it takes money. It's really, this could be a whole conversation, but you can hire people in other countries, even probably here, and pay them, money, and then they play this game to make money. It's really interesting.
I have
And I
just recently aware about that, and that I heard a whole podcast about it, and especially because there's a lot of people in my home country, Venezuela, that are making a living out of playing these games.
we just actually hired somebody from Venezuela. Yeah.
Yeah, and believe me, in many cases, you're changing their life.
Well, and that's what I want to do. Like, because it starts with if you can just change one person's life, and because some of these people, they don't have any way to provide for their families.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah.
I just love it. So I'm excited to see where that whole world goes. And I hope to continue to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you. That's the first time I get that answer. And I really love it. I didn't know there was somebody else aware of it. So maybe I should do a show just about that.
Yeah, let me
And,
know. I'll have to
I
bring my
will. I
husband
will let
in.
you know.
He's very knowledgeable on it.
So this is the end of our conversation, Brandy. Thank you so much for taking time out of your, overly scheduled day to be with us and give us some of your knowledge and wisdom. We really appreciate it. And for those of you watching, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode of Tech Tuesday. Thank you so very much. Goodbye.